This is a story about the one thing you always forget to check. It brought down an empire that survived 1,000 years of war. By the end of this video, you'll wonder what your own version of that door looks like.
For 1,123 years, the walls of Constantinople had never been broken. Not once. Armies tried. Empires tried. The walls won every single time. Then, on one night in May, a soldier forgot to lock a door. And by sunrise, an empire that had survived 1,000 years of sieges, plagues, and civil wars was gone. Not because of cannon, not because of betrayal, because of a door nobody remembered to check. Let's go back to May 1453. The city is Constantinople, capital of the Byzantine Empire, the last living piece of the Roman Empire. Rome itself had fallen 1,000 years earlier, but Constantinople held on. While Europe fought its wars and burned its heretics, this one city kept the lights of the old world on. And the reason it survived so long wasn't luck. It was the walls. The Theodosian Walls weren't just walls. They were a system, 3 layers deep, stretching 4 miles, built so that even if attackers broke through the first wall, they'd be trapped in a kill zone before the second. For over 1,000 years, every army that tried to break them failed. Huns failed. Arabs failed twice. Even the Bulgarians, who terrified half of Europe, looked at those walls and turned around. By 1453, the walls weren't just stone. They were a story the whole world told itself. Constantinople doesn't fall. Then Sultan Mehmed II showed up with the largest army Europe had seen in a generation, and something the walls had never faced before. Cannons. Massive ones, some over 25 feet long, built specifically to crack stone that had never cracked. For 53 days, the Ottomans pounded the walls. The defenders, outnumbered something like 10-1, held the line anyway. Day after day, they patched the breaches at night with whatever they could find: wood, rubble, dirt. They were exhausted, sleep-deprived, running on nothing. And still, the walls held. Here's a question worth sitting with. Have you ever pushed yourself so hard for so long that the smallest task suddenly became the hardest one? Not the big decisions, those you plan for. It's the small ones, the ones you do on autopilot, that start slipping when you're running on empty. That's exactly what happened on the night of May 28th. Along the northern stretch of the walls, there was a small postern gate called the Kerkoporta. It wasn't a main entrance. It was a minor side door used by defenders to slip out, harass the enemy, and slip back in before anyone noticed. The kind of door you'd walk past 100 times without thinking about it. That night, a group of defenders used it for exactly that, a quick raid outside the walls. And according to the chronicles, in the chaos of pulling back, in the exhaustion of fighting for 53 straight days, somebody forgot to bar it shut. Just sit with that for a second. After a millennium of holding the most fortified city on earth, the empire didn't fall because the walls broke. It fell because one door, out of hundreds, was left unlocked by someone too tired to remember. Think about how often this happens in your own life. You don't usually fail because of the big decision you agonized over. You fail because of the small one you didn't even register as a decision. The email you meant to send and forgot. The appointment you didn't write down. The door, literally or figuratively, that you walked past 1,000 times and assumed would always just be there, closed, the way it always was. Ottoman soldiers found the open gate almost by accident. A small group slipped inside, climbed the tower above it, and raised their flag over the walls. From the outside, it looked like the impossible had happened. The walls had been breached. And here's the part that makes this story brutal. It wasn't true yet. The main walls were still holding. The army outside was still locked out everywhere else. But the moment defenders on other sections of the wall saw an enemy flag flying inside the city, panic did what 53 days of cannon fire couldn't do. It broke their will to keep fighting. That's worth another question. How much of what falls apart in your life is the actual disaster? And how much is just the panic after you see one small thing go wrong? Because panic spreads faster than the truth ever can. Word moved down the walls in minutes. Defenders abandoned their posts to find out what was happening, leaving other sections thin. Other gates, fully intact, fully defendable, were suddenly undermanned because everyone's attention had shifted to one open door across the city. Emperor Constantine XI, the very last Roman emperor, was somewhere on those walls when it happened. According to the accounts that survive, he tore off his imperial regalia so he wouldn't be recognized, and he disappeared into the fighting. Nobody ever confirmed how he died. No grave was ever found. The last Roman emperor in a line stretching back over 14 centuries simply vanished into the chaos that one open door created. By the end of that day, the city that had stood for over 1,000 years belonged to someone else. Historians still argue about exactly how much the Kerkoporta mattered compared to everything else collapsing at once: the cannons, the exhaustion, the sheer size of the Ottoman force. But almost every account agrees on one thing. That gate was the spark, not the cause of everything, but the moment the story flipped from "we might survive this" to "it's already over." Here's something I think about more than I'd like to admit. We tend to imagine our downfalls in advance as something dramatic. A huge mistake, a betrayal, a catastrophic call we'll see coming from a mile away. But that's rarely how it actually goes. It's the door you didn't double-check, the conversation you put off one too many times, the habit you let slide for just one more day, and then another, until the gap was wide enough for everything to walk through. You don't need an army at your walls to lose something that took years to build. Sometimes all it takes is the one small thing you were too tired, too distracted, or too confident to check. So here's the real question this story leaves behind. Somewhere in your life right now, is there a door you haven't checked in a while? Not the big, obvious risks you already manage carefully. The small one. The one you've walked past so many times you've stopped seeing it all. Tonight, you'll flip a switch and never think about it. The Byzantines didn't have that luxury. They had soldiers, walls, and one door that needed someone to remember it. And for one night, after 53 days of holding back an empire, that's all it took. Not a bigger army, not a smarter enemy, just one small thing left unchecked in the dark.
Raquel, if this story made you think about the small things you keep putting off, that's the point. History doesn't usually collapse in one big moment. It collapses in the moment nobody was watching. If you want more stories like this, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.